Good afternoon, everyone. It's like I'm going to take off or something, yeah. Anyway, the most common question that people ask me is, why is Gibraltar part of the Island Games, even though it isn't an island? And I never knew the answer to that until recently, so I always made up the answer. I used to say that in 1985, when the Games were first started, the frontier was closed, so politically we were an island, and I stuck to that for many years. Then in 2018, when I was in Guernsey, I met one of the founders of the Island Games, and I asked him. In 1986, the Commonwealth Games were in Edinburgh, and some of our athletes were competing there, and a discussion started between the Isle of Man, Guernsey, Jersey and Gibraltar. The first Games had been the year before, and they were looking for new members. The International Island Games felt that Gibraltar met all the basic requirements of the principles on which the Island Games were founded. For example, that along with other Commonwealth members, we had little in competition available for the sporting community other than the Commonwealth Games itself, which, as we know, is of a very high standard. And not many athletes can attend those games. So really, this is what the Island Games was founded on. So they actually accepted us, and we've competed in every Games since 1987. It's just a photo there of our squad from the 2019 Games. Now, for the Games background. The Inter-Island Games was started by the Isle of Man in 1985. Gibraltar first attended in 1987 in Guernsey, and I was actually a competitor for badminton then. Not very good, but at least I did try. The 6 Island Games were held in Gibraltar here in 1995. Today there are 23 member islands, and a hosting island has to stage between 12 to 14 sports. It's held every 2 years. Come on. Now, originally in 2019 Games was going to be hosted by Faroes, and they pulled out, and then also Minorca. Now, when I go to a Games, I always travel beforehand, and I usually spend a day or two beforehand trying to sort out accommodation, making sure accreditation's correct. And in Guernsey, in 2015, I was told about the withdrawal of Minorca by the executive committee. Do you know sometimes when you send a message and you instantly regret sending this message? Well, that's what I did to Minister Linares here, okay? I sent him a message and I said, Minorca have pulled out. And then I thought to myself, what an idiot you are. Because I knew what was going to happen. So I met the minister off of the plane at Jersey, and he said, guess what? And the rest is history, as they say. So that was how we actually hosted the Games here. Now, we have 2 island marriages from the Island Games. Now, in the photo is Fabian Franco, you can see on the right, an athlete who first participated in Guernsey with me in 1987. Now, whilst there, he met someone from the Faroe Islands. They got married. They had a child, Jessie, here, who won 2 gold medals last year in Gibraltar. So it's in the family, eh? So amazing, really. Now, sports have always asking me if they could become members of the Games. You know, netball, lots of sports here in Gibraltar. But the constitution of the Island Games has 18 sports, and any hosting islands has to choose between 12 to 14 of those sports that are listed there. Now, you can imagine if we wanted to put another sports in, but not just us, any of the islands, one of those sports has to come out. So you can imagine you don't want that sport to come out if it's your sport. So, you know, for all these years, no other new sports have been allowed to compete. Now, just a map for you people that are not very geographically minded here. Most of the member islands here are from the around the British Isles. We have 10 islands there. Hopefully you can see them. We have a few islands. Hitra, Frøya are from Norway. We've got Åland and Gotland, they're from Sweden. And we've got, you know, lots of others, a few in the Mediterranean. So most of them come from the northwest Europe. But we also have a few islands that aren't in Northwest Europe. So we've got Bermuda, who've actually hosted the Games once, Cayman Islands, St. Helena, and the Falkland Islands. Now, an interesting story about St. Helena is that until last year, they never had a runway. So if they wanted to compete in the Games, they had to get on a boat. And remember, this is in the middle of the South Atlantic. Get on a boat, have to go to South Africa, and then from South Africa have to go to wherever they're going to. So it used to take them, 3 or 4 days before they actually got here. And what is really interesting, these islands, they come every year. Can you imagine the cost that to come every 2 years over to Europe? So, good on them. They make the numbers up, so they're important islands. Now, this is a list of the individual medals up to 2019. On here, I haven't included the last year's Games. Gibraltar has won a total of 347 medals since we first participated. Quite a lot. Now, I want you just to look, because there's a difference between sports, as team sports, and individuals. So if you look on the left, you've got individual people and how many their sports and the number of medals they've won. And on the right, you've got team sports. Now, let's just take basketball, for example, because John's here. Basketball has to compete all week just to get one medal. Whereas if you've got something like a sport like shooting, swimming, athletics, then individuals can compete in 2, 3, or even 4 different events in those sports. So that's why the numbers are different. So it doesn't look a lot, but they are really important medals for the teams. And as you can see, basketball have done brilliantly since they joined, because they only joined halfway through our cycle, shall we say. And on there, you've got Lee Whitwell for tennis, 24 medals. But this year, Jonathan Patron won another 3 medals, so he's actually joined Lee and top of the list. Now, I don't quite know how well you can see this, but this is the 1987 Games, the medals that we won there. We won 8 medals. In Gibraltar in 1995, 22 medals. And I just want to pick up one person there. I don't know if you can see halfway down. Here we go. Ethaniel Moore for judo. He got a medal in 1995, and he got a medal here last year as well. So that was really a good achievement there from him. Right, where we go? Okay, this is the total medal count from the Summer Games. It's the highest medal count we've ever had from any Games. And if you looked at the 95 figures as well, it shows you how important being the host is, because it is, it gives you an amazing advantage. Shooting, I don't know if you can actually see, but this is shooting. 18 medals. And you think, 18 medals, that's an awful lot. But you've got to remember, in shooting, you've got 3 disciplines. You've got clay shooting, you've got pistol shooting, and you've got rifle shooting. And as I said before, one individual can take part in 3 or 4 events. Now, historically, Gibraltar has always done well in shooting, not just in the Island Games, but anywhere we go. And I think that is why I think, the new facilities that have been built as well for the Island Games, they're actually first class. They're international standard, and we are hoping to bring international tournaments to Gibraltar so that we can kickstart some sort of a sports tourism industry. So they're going to be used. Now, for tennis, you've got 3 medals there, and Amanda Carreras, our famous tennis player, she won 3 golds there, and she won that without even dropping one set throughout the whole week, so good on her. And we've got athletics, judo, squash, and basketball. Now, where do we come? Because there's 23 islands. We usually come halfway down the medal table. You can see where we are there with comparing to other islands like Jersey, Isle of Man. But you've got to realise our population of, say, 30,000. Isle of Wight has a population of 114,000. Minorca has a population of 95,000. So really, we are doing very well. We're punching above our weight for the size of our population. Now, this might be interesting because these are the figures that were in the games last summer, for the accredited people, everybody had to be accredited. So you can see the number of competitors, 1,625, and it goes down to, we had to divide all the different officials up to various categories. But at the end, look at that figure, 2,945. That's the amount, I know we've got Gibraltar figures in there as well, but that's the amount of people what were in Gibraltar during that 8 days period. Not just those, but there was lots of spectators that were staying actually in the linear, and some were staying here as well. So, there's over 3,500 people here during the week. And we actually commissioned a survey to be done by an independent company, and they've estimated that in that period, Gibraltar gained for hotels, for people going out, eating, dining, the shops, etc., that they gained £4.9 million. So that's the revenue that actually came into Gibraltar because of the games. Photo of our volunteers. We couldn't have done it without our volunteers. Oh, my voice has gone there because I get quite emotional. As you can see, our volunteers, we called them the Argus Games Makers. They wore different colour T-shirts because depending on their role. So Navy were the general organising committee, the lime green were the technical officials, the black were security, so that we could identify the various helpers along the way. They obviously aren't all on that in that photograph, and there was a lot more because we had to give day passes as well to people. So I think we must have had in the region of about 700 odd volunteers during that week. When we started out, quickly, we had to make a company, we had to make an organising committee, we had to do a safety advisory groups, because obviously safety is very important, not just on an individual level for the person, but internationally. We had to be aware of all the different things that were going on. We had the road races, we had the sailing in the sea, so security was quite important. The challenges before we started, we had the infrastructure challenges. We didn't know whether the venues were going to be completed on time, although Mr. Linares had no problems about that. Volunteers, we didn't know how many numbers we would need. Transportation, we had to move these 3,000 people around Gibraltar. I mean, that's a massive thing. And another important thing that people don't realise is about firearms. So you imagine all the people coming into firearms. And we also had people coming in through Spain with firearms, which is very, very difficult. So we had to do a lot of work on firearms. As I say, the transportation. And at that time, Brexit, we didn't know what was going to happen to Brexit. And we had to do a public communication strategy, letting the public know exactly of what was going on. And as you well know, we had various new sporting complexes built. I'm not going to go into that too much because, I've got much time. As you can see, there's the Lafbury, which was going to be the new athletics and the swimming pool at Europa. We've got the new the rugby, which is going to be there for some football, cricket, and obviously the indoor stadiums as well. Transport loop, we had to provide the transport loop for everybody, so that's how we managed that. But more importantly, we was also concerned about our footprint and our carbon footprint, because we actually produced a map of telling people how long it takes to walk from one place to another. So from their accommodation to the venues, hoping people are going to walk rather than take transportation. We were lucky because we don't have enough accommodation in Gibraltar. So we were just lucky that the MOD handed back the Europa flats, and we turned that into an athlete's accommodation there. Now, this is just a photo for those of you that would like us to have a look. This is inside the new student accommodation at Europa. That was the show flat. It's how it was done out. We had a quick look before we went, and it's got a little kitchenette and nice shower room. So they're really, really nice there. We also had a polyclinic in the university as well, so that we could treat people before we had to take them to hospital or A&E or anywhere else. So that was very essential. Hope, the dolphin, this was my pet, because I didn't want all these plastic bottles during the games, because it would have been thousands and thousands. So we were trying to make sure we actually got containers for every athlete so that they didn't have to use plastic water. We had the refillable fountains all around Gibraltar as well. So that was something I'm very proud of. Blast off, hold on, one more. I'm not going to go into... Listen, this photo. Okay, now this is just one photo. This epitomises what the Games is about. All right, this is our athlete going up the time trial. Look at everybody supporting him. I think there, you might have seen some other other photos with the flags up, but this is what is important. You know, it was just amazing. Now, if you want to have a look at some of these photos that I've got from the various venues, if you go onto our website, there's a new swimming pool, the new clay range. Please go on the rifle shooting range at North Mile, which is amazing. Please go on our website and you can see some of these photos with Amanda and 3 medals. And the triathlon, that was amazing that day. It was just incredible. It was amazing. So the 2 medals that were won by the basketball as well. So there's hundreds of photos because we engaged a group of photographers to go round and actually take photos, not just for Gibraltar, but for the rest of the islands as well. Lastly, I would just like to say a thank you to the people of Gibraltar, because the government departments, the companies that sponsored us, the people that volunteered, the people that turned up to the Games, made the Games. So thank you all very much.